The old man was counting his last breaths when the little girl walked into his bedroom carrying a sealed envelope that had been hidden for 43 years. Outside, rain dragged silver lines down the windows of Ashcombe House. Inside, the mansion was so quiet that the ticking of the grandfather clock sounded like a warning. Lucian Vale lay beneath white linen, his oxygen tube misting with every shallow breath. His empire was worth more than most small cities, but no family voice was waiting for him to wake. His son had sent a lawyer instead of coming himself. His daughter had called only to ask whether the doctors had changed his will. The nurses checked his monitors and left him with the careful politeness people used around expensive objects. Then, the door opened. A small black girl stood in the doorway, wearing a yellow raincoat 2 sizes too large. Her braids were beaded with red and white plastic stars. In both hands she held a brown envelope, its edges dark with age, its flap sealed beneath a cracked circle of blue wax. Lucian stared at the seal. For the first time in years, fear moved across his face before he could hide it. The girl stepped inside. "Mr. Vale," she said, "my mom says this belongs to you, but the woman who gave it to her said you would pretend you didn't know her." Lucian's fingers tightened around the blanket. The blue wax bore a tiny mark, a crooked compass with one missing point. He had not seen that mark since he was 19 years old, standing outside a bus station with a suitcase in one hand and a promise he never kept in the other. "Who gave you that?" he whispered. The girl looked at the envelope, then back at him. "A lady at the library. She told me not to open it because dead people don't like strangers reading their mail." "Get out." The child did not move. "Are you the dead person?" Behind her, the maid hurried into view, pale and breathless. "Mr. Vale, I am so sorry. I told her to wait downstairs." Lucian looked from the woman to the envelope. Mariah Carter had worked in his house for 11 months, refusing every offer that sounded like pity. Her daughter, Nia, had been a quiet presence in the kitchen and hallways. Now, Nia held the past in her small hands. "Take it away," Lucian said. Mariah reached for the envelope. Nia pulled it to her chest. "But she said it was important," the girl protested. "She said Mr. Vale has been waiting for it, even if he doesn't know he's been waiting." Lucian turned toward the window. For 43 years, he had built walls high enough to hide behind. Somehow, a child had walked through the first door. "Leave," he said again, softer this time. "Both of you." Before they could go, Lucian noticed a faded pencil drawing tucked beneath the envelope. It showed a house with too many windows, a black sky, and 3 people beneath an umbrella. One figure had been crossed out until the paper nearly tore. Nia followed his gaze. "I drew that yesterday. The house looked lonely." Lucian swallowed. Houses don't feel lonely. "Then why do you sleep with all the lights on?" The question landed harder than any accusation. Mariah led her away. The door closed. Lucian heard the child's shoes tapping down the corridor, each step growing fainter until there was only the clock again. He reached for the envelope. His hand stopped an inch above it. The seal was not merely familiar. It was a warning from the only person he had ever loved before money taught him to call love a weakness. He pressed the call button. "Find out who brought that here." His attorney, Graham Pike, arrived 20 minutes later. He picked up the envelope with a handkerchief, studied the wax, and went still. "You recognize it," Lucian said. Graham's eyes lifted. "I recognize an old-fashioned seal. Don't insult me in my own bedroom. I'm trying to protect you. From paper? From whatever someone wants you to believe." Lucian held out his hand. Graham placed the envelope on the bed, but did not release it immediately. Lucian saw calculation in his attorney's face. "Where is Mariah Carter?" Lucian asked. "Probably packing. Security can escort her out tonight." "Why?" "Because she brought an unknown child into a restricted room. She works here. She is a liability." Lucian looked at the envelope. Everyone becomes a liability when they carry the truth. Graham's expression hardened. "You need rest. Your doctor said agitation could shorten your life. Perhaps that is the first useful thing anyone has told me." Graham left with the envelope still on the bed. That night, Lucian did not sleep. At 2 a.m, he opened the drawer beside him and took out a photograph. It showed a younger man with dark hair beside a woman beneath a bus station sign. Her name was Evelyn Carter. She was 8 months pregnant when Lucian left her in the winter of 1983. He promised to return after finding work in Chicago, saying he needed 3 months to become respectable. He boarded a bus with a borrowed suitcase and $50. 3 months became a year, then a company, then an empire. Whenever he considered finding Evelyn, someone warned him about scandal, lawsuits, or a child who might want his money. Eventually, he stopped asking. But he never stopped seeing her face when the bus pulled away. The next morning, Mariah arrived as usual. Lucian found her in the dining room, polishing silver no one used. Her shoulders were straight, but her eyes were red. "Graham told me you were dismissed," she said. "He speaks for himself." "He said my daughter frightened you." "Your daughter is not responsible for my reactions." "That is not an answer." Lucian gripped the back of a chair. Standing had become difficult, and he hated that she noticed. "Where did she get the envelope?" Mariah set down the cloth. "A woman named Mrs. Bell met us at the Maple Street Library. She asked Nia to deliver it to you." "What did she look like?" "Older, gray hair, green scarf. She knew my mother's name." Lucian's breath caught. "Your mother?" Mariah's face closed. "My mother died when I was 12. "What was her name?" "You already know." "No, I don't." "Evelyn Carter." The room seemed to tilt. Rain tapped the tall windows. Somewhere in the house, a vacuum cleaner began and stopped. Mariah watched him. "That name means something to you." Lucian sat down. "I knew a woman named Evelyn." "My mother talked about a boy named Lucian. She said he left to build a life and never came back." He really looked at her, the narrow chin and the crescent scar above her eyebrow, the same scar Evelyn had carried since childhood. "Your mother had a daughter?" Mariah laughed once, without humor. "I was that daughter." The envelope lay between them like a loaded weapon. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know. Not at first. Your name was on the employment form, but rich men named Vale are not rare in this city. Then I saw the photograph in your library." "What photograph?" "The one you keep turned face down." Lucian closed his eyes. Mariah continued. "I recognized my mother. I did not confront you because I needed the job, and because I wanted to know whether the man who abandoned her was still alive inside you." "And?" "I'm still deciding." Her honesty should have angered him. Instead, it left him defenseless. "Open the envelope," she said. "I can't." "Can't or won't?" Lucian looked at the cracked blue wax. "Both." Before Mariah could answer, Nia appeared beneath the archway carrying a mug with both hands. "I brought tea," she said. "The nurse says you should drink something warm." "I don't drink tea." Nia frowned. "You drank it yesterday." "I tolerated it." "That sounds like drinking with extra complaining." Mariah almost smiled. Lucian noticed and found himself wanting to hear that sound again. Nia placed the mug beside him. Mrs. Bell said the envelope has 3 letters inside. Lucian's eyes sharpened. 3. She said 1 is for you, 1 is for my mom, and 1 is for me. But she said the last one should stay sealed until you tell the truth. Mariah turned toward her daughter. Nia. What? I'm just saying what she said. Lucian felt the floor disappear beneath the past. An envelope designed for 3 people, carried by a child who had never met him until yesterday. Who was Mrs. Bell, and why had she waited so long? Graham Pike answered the question before Lucian could investigate. By noon, he had placed a stack of papers on Lucian's desk. A complaint has been filed against Mariah for theft, he said. Mariah stiffened. That's a lie. Security footage shows you entering the West Wing after midnight. I was called to clean a spill. The nurse denies it. Nia clutched her mother's skirt. Mommy didn't steal anything. Graham's voice softened in a way that made it more threatening. No one is accusing the child. Lucian stared at the papers. What was stolen? An old photograph from the library. Which one? Graham hesitated. The Carter photograph. Mariah looked at Lucian. You took it? I did not. Graham said, the evidence is clear. Lucian noticed a damp crescent on the complaint. Graham's coat was dry, but the stain smelled of cedar polish from the locked library. You searched the library, Lucian said. Of course. Without my permission? Your health requires us to act quickly. Lucian reached for the telephone. Call the police. Mariah's face went white. Graham leaned forward. Think carefully. If this becomes public, your employee will be arrested, her daughter placed with relatives, and your name dragged through every newspaper in the state. There it was. Not protection. Pressure. Lucian pressed the receiver down. Leave my house. Graham did not move. You need me. No. I needed someone to tell me I was right. You were always willing. For the first time, Graham's mask slipped. You built this empire because I stopped people using your past against you. You built it beside me because you knew my past was worth more than my company's. The attorney's eyes flicked to the envelope. Open that, and you may lose everything. Lucian looked at Mariah and Nia. Then perhaps I should finally learn what everything costs. That evening, Lucian opened the first letter. The paper inside was thin and yellowed. The handwriting tilted slightly to the left. Evelyn's handwriting. Lucian, if this reaches you, then I have run out of reasons to keep protecting your silence. He stopped reading, his vision blurred. Mariah remained across the room, arms folded, refusing to comfort him. Nia sat on the carpet, drawing a house with one window lit. He continued. You will hear that I hated you. That would be easier for both of us. The truth is that I loved you long after I understood I could not trust you. I kept the child safe. I kept your name out of her life because your lawyer came to me with a choice. Accept money and disappear, or let him make sure you never became successful enough to help us. Lucian's hands began to shake. Graham had not been his attorney then. He had been a junior clerk working for Lucian's father, the man who threatened to cut Lucian off if he married Evelyn. Graham had handled the meeting, carried the money, and told Evelyn that Lucian had chosen his family. Lucian read on. I did not take the money for myself. I took it because your father's men had found out where we lived, and I was afraid. But I hid most of it in a trust for the child. Graham told you I left. He told me you had chosen silence. We were both lied to." Lucian lowered the page. Mariah's voice was quiet. "My mother kept that letter all her life?" "I don't know." "Did you ever look for her?" He could not answer quickly enough. Mariah nodded. "That is what I thought." Naya looked up. "Is the letter sad?" "Yes," Lucian said. "Then maybe you should read it with someone." The innocent suggestion cut through him. A child was telling him that grief became heavier when carried in private. He finished the letter. The envelope was meant to be opened only when the three of us could stand in the same room. Not because blood makes people family, but because truth needs witnesses. Mrs. Bell knows where the other papers are. Ask her about the blue compass. Ask her what happened at the bus station. At the bottom, Evelyn had drawn the crooked compass. The next morning, he and Mariah went to Maple Street Library with Naya between them. The old building smelled of dust and wet wool. Mrs. Bell was waiting near the history shelves, wearing a green scarf. "I was not aware I was invited." "Evelyn invited you 43 years ago. You were the one who failed to attend." Mariah's jaw tightened. "You knew my mother?" "I was her neighbor. I was also the clerk at the bus station the night Lucian left." Lucian felt cold despite the warmth of the library. "You saw her?" "I saw you." Mrs. Bell reached into her satchel and removed a small brass key. "Evelyn came to the station with the baby. She waited for 2 hours. I was told she canceled." "You were told many things. Why didn't you stop me?" "Because your father's man stood beside you, and I had 2 children of my own. Courage is not always loud, Mr. Vale. Sometimes it is surviving long enough to tell the truth." Naya touched the key. "What does it open?" "A box." "Is there treasure?" Mrs. Bell looked at Lucian. "Something more dangerous." The box was hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Inside were bank records, a bus ticket, a photograph of Evelyn holding baby Mariah, and a second letter addressed to the child who was told she had been abandoned. Mariah stared at the photograph. Her mother's face was young and exhausted. The baby's tiny hand curled around Evelyn's finger. Lucian saw the resemblance and finally understood why Mariah had always looked at him as if she were waiting for him to become someone else. Mrs. Bell gave him the bank records. "The money your father paid Evelyn was placed in a trust for Mariah. Graham Pike closed it 3 days before she turned 25. Mariah went still. "How?" "By claiming the child was dead." Lucian's heart stumbled. He knew she was alive. He knew everything. The room narrowed around them. The envelope was no longer a message from the past. It was a map to an injustice still alive. Naya pointed at the photograph. "That's my grandmother." "Yes," Mariah whispered. "Did she love you?" Mariah pressed the photograph to her chest. "More than anything." Naya looked at Lucian. "Did you love her?" He could have chosen a careful answer. He had built a lifetime from careful answers. "Yes," he said. "And I was afraid." "Of my grandmother?" "Of becoming poor. Of disappointing my father. Of admitting I had made a promise I might not be able to keep." For the first time, Mariah's expression softened. Not forgiveness, recognition. But someone had followed them. When they returned to Ashcombe House, the West Wing door stood open. Lucian's bedroom had been searched, drawers emptied. The envelope was gone.
Naya's drawing lay torn across the floor. Lucian noticed a small red bead on the carpet. One of Naya's hair beads. It had been beside the envelope when he last saw it. A noise came from the old conservatory. They followed it through the dark hall. Graham stood among dead orange trees, holding the envelope over a brass wastebasket. In his other hand was a lighter. "You should have stayed in bed," Graham said. Mariah stepped forward. "Give it to me." "You have no idea what this will do," he replied. "Lucian's board will remove him. His children will challenge every transfer."
The charities, the companies, the employees. Thousands of people will suffer because one old woman decided to rewrite history. "No," Lucian said. "Thousands of people will suffer because you stole from a child." Graham's face twisted. "I saved your empire. You saved your position. I kept Evelyn from destroying you." "Evelyn was not destroying me. She was asking me to be accountable." Graham struck the lighter. The flame rose between them. Nia began to cry. "Please don't burn my grandmother's letter." The words made Graham hesitate. It was brief, but Daniel saw it. He moved fast, knocking the lighter away. Graham shoved him, grabbed Nia by the arm, and pulled her against his chest. Mariah screamed his name. Lucian tried to stand. Pain shot through his body, but he kept moving. The oxygen line tore from his face. He crossed the conservatory with one hand gripping the walls, his heart monitor alarm shrieking from the portable unit behind him. "Let her go," he said. Graham pressed the envelope against Nia's shoulder. "Back away." Lucian stopped. He was dizzy, weak, and terrified. For once, money could not reach into the moment and buy a solution. Nia looked at him over Graham's arm. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "Mr. Vale, you said houses don't feel lonely." Lucian understood. She was not asking him to be brave for the sake of pride. She was asking him to answer the question he had avoided from the beginning. "People do," he said. "And I made this house lonely." Graham tightened his grip. "What are you doing?" "Telling the truth." Lucian looked directly at Mariah. "I knew Evelyn was pregnant. I knew my father threatened her. I knew Graham had lied, but I let myself believe the lie because it gave me permission to leave. I did not search hard enough. I did not come back. I built every dollar of my fortune on top of one cowardly choice." Mariah's face crumpled, but she did not look away. Graham whispered, "You'll lose everything." "I already did." He turned toward the security cameras. "Daniel, record this. Call the police. Call the board. Call every newspaper Graham ever threatened. Let the truth cost me what it costs." Graham's attention shifted. Nia slipped her foot backward and stepped down hard on his shoe. He cursed. Mariah pulled her daughter free, and Daniel tackled Graham onto the stone floor. The envelope fell beside Lucian. He picked it up with trembling hands. The wax seal cracked completely. Inside was the third letter, the one addressed to Nia. "Dear Nia, if you are reading this, then you have met the man who gave me my first laugh and my longest sorrow. Do not let his money decide what he means to you. Watch what he does when the truth becomes expensive. That will tell you more than anything he says." Lucian closed his eyes. The final page contained no accusation. It held a child's drawing, made by Mariah when she was 6. In it, a man stood beside a house with 3 windows. The man had no face. Above him, in uneven letters, were the words, "Maybe someday." Mariah stared at it. "I made that." "Your mother kept it." "She told me my father was a story she didn't know how to finish." Lucian offered her the letter. "I am sorry." Mariah did not take it. "Sorry is not a bridge." "No." "It is not a childhood. It is not the trust you stole from me by failing to look. It is not my mother's lost years." "I know." "Do you?" Lucian's voice broke. "I am beginning to." The police took Graham away before dawn. The trust had grown quietly for decades, but Graham had drained part of it through shell companies and hidden the rest inside a Vail Foundation account. Lucian's board tried to delay the investigation, while his children demanded that he be declared incompetent. For the first time, Lucian refused to let lawyers speak for him. Lucian dismissed the staff who had treated the house like a fortress and converted the unused East Wing into a learning center called the Evelyn Carter House. He funded scholarships, but refused to put his name on them. His children stopped visiting after he changed his will. Lucian let them go, no longer using their absence as proof that love could be purchased or demanded. Nia continued to visit on Saturdays. At first, she sat near the window and drew while Lucian worked through medical appointments. Then she began asking permission to explore. She found the music room, greenhouse, and kitchen where Mariah once hid birthday cupcakes. Lucian's health did not miraculously return. Some mornings he could barely walk, but the mansion changed. The lights were left on because someone was expected home. One autumn evening, nearly a year later, Nia entered Lucian's bedroom carrying a new drawing. He sat beside the window, thinner but awake, with a blanket over his knees and tea cooling beside him. "Is that for me?" he asked. "It's for the room." She pinned the drawing above the fireplace. It showed Ashcombe House beneath a blue sky. 3 figures stood on the front steps, an old man, a woman, and a little girl. There were dozens of windows, but only one had a light turned on. Lucian studied it. "Why only one?" "Because that's the room where you learned not to be alone." He reached into the drawer and removed the old envelope. The paper had been repaired with archival tape. The cracked wax was gone, but the crooked compass remained visible. Nia touched it gently. "Does it still scare you?" "Not the way it used to." "What did it do?" Lucian looked at Mariah, who stood in the doorway holding 2 mugs. She had heard the question. She had also heard the answer many times, though never in exactly the same words. "It brought me a chance," he said. Nia shook her head. "No, it brought you to us. You had to decide what to do after that." Lucian smiled. "You're right." Mariah set the mugs down. She usually is, which is becoming a problem. Nia climbed onto the chair beside him. "Grandma said people can spend their whole lives waiting for the right door." Lucian looked toward the open bedroom door. And what did she know about doors? She knew they only matter if you walk through them. For a long moment, no one spoke. The old clock sounded from the hall, no longer like a warning, but like time moving forward. He turned the envelope over in his hands. "Keep this." Nia's eyes widened. "Me? You brought it here." "But it belongs to you." "It belonged to the truth before it belonged to any of us." She accepted it carefully and placed it beneath her drawing. Lucian looked at the girl who expected nothing except an honest answer. She had not saved him with money or heroism. She had refused to treat him like a fortune, measuring him by whether he could tell the truth. "Mr. Vail," she said, "are you still dying alone?" He looked at Mariah. She did not smile, but she stayed in the room. He looked at the drawing, the envelope, and the single light glowing across the hall. "No," he said, "and I'm not finished living yet." If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what you think Naya's simple honesty changed in Lucian first. Share this story with someone who believes it is too late to make things right, because sometimes the person who changes your life is the one you never expected to meet.